Hi, this is Shadi. Today I want to discuss no-gi. It is a big phenomenon in today's grappling, and what is interesting about it is that it has developed or evolved for different reasons and for different needs depending on the culture and the geographical region. And this is what I find most interesting about this phenomenon. And also, regardless of what your background is, a lot of people can just get together, meet in nogi, and really express themselves. But before we talk about that, please don't forget to check out my book, The Origins and History of Judo, a translation of the manuscript from 1903, available in English and French, both bilingual with modern Japanese. Links will be down below. Again, thank you all who have already supported this. So first, let's start with Japan, the Meiji era. We have to understand that gi and kimono are not the same. In the past, before the gi that we have today, people grappled in their traditional clothing, the hakama and the kimono, and whenever it was hot, or maybe they wanted their fabric to be more durable and to last long, they would fight in their undergarments, as you see here as well. They were like shorts and the small jackets, so basically in their undergarment. And of course, you have these depictions just like this one that also shows that they fought without shirt as well. So as you saw, the first undergarment looked kind of like the basic form of the gi, and then later on they added a double weave, and then later the rice grain fabric. I have a whole presentation on how it evolved, but from these depictions here from the Meiji era, as you can see that they fought in shorts, or what they call the sarumata. They are shirtless and yet still grappling. Again, this is to preserve their garments. Maybe it's hot, they've been training for a while, they took them off, but nonetheless the fundamentals, their jujitsu, etc., was still being practiced. It's not a different or separate type of discipline. It was just simply the need because of their durable clothing, their culture, and also a humid place like Japan. Now, speaking of clothing, let's talk a little bit about Xmartial. They have a wide range of variety of rash guards and shorts. A lot of high-level competitors have already worked with them. They are incredibly affordable, available for both men and women. Also, they have anything from the minimalist design to the very complex and colorful. So please don't forget to check them out in the description below. And if you are an active competitor and looking to represent someone, the link below, of course, will be a help as well. Now, let's move on to to Europe, the UK in particular. Of course, when you talk about the turn of the century and the UK, we cannot but talk about hooking, or catch as catch can. And of course, we all know how brutal and great and tough of a martial art it is. Maeda, according to sources like Shockey and Craze and Eric Shahan's translations, you can see that Maeda fought with them or competed with them, but he was somewhat successful. He wasn't dominant, or he wasn't completely dominated. No, it wasn't a big successful run. However, he did say something of he needed to work a little bit more on his katame waza because they were just so superior. And of course, he talked about his katame waza, not he needed to train more wrestling like a lot of jiu-jitsu people say. He just simply was talking about his own judo, that it needed to be developed. Now, this is interesting because the no-gi phenomenon is it's not just simply catch wrestling, just going into jiu-jitsu or judo, and now you have no-gi, or one guy tried to do this, like Elio Gracie invented the guard. No, it's none of that. It's very much like a lot of throws, how they were invented. You can find them sprouting from different cultures depending on their need and their development of their grappling, or the newaza in Japan, or judo, whether it's in Japan, how it evolved through the decades with the competition and the sportification, and later on wave by wave of immigrants in Brazil. It's a whole nother topic, but the same for nogi phenomenon. As I'm showing you, Maeda took off his jacket, whether he wanted to take some random challengers or he was competing with legitimate catch wrestlers. And here you see in Brazil, in America, Valet tudo is a different story. Carlson Gracie using his uchimata left and right, and he was doing incredibly against Santana. This is from 1955. And talking about Valet tudo, which means anything goes, it was again like a playing ground for many to meet there and fight. You had boxers, you had capoeira fighters, and of course you had judokas like the Gracie brothers competing. And it reminds me of a quote by Elio. Now I'm paraphrasing, but I forget from which interview it was. He said that when I'm fighting someone of different background, meaning somewhere in the format of Valet tudo, he says, my concern is to really level up my judo or jiu-jitsu, because I don't want to waste time learning his craft or about his craft, because he's clearly superior. I'm not gonna go into his ground, but rather I'm gonna impose my jiu-jitsu. And again, it's another definition, or it's another way of saying I'm gonna do my judo in this particular context. It's actually very organic. Anyone who has a black belt in judo or has done a lot of years of judo or wrestling or wherever it may be, then transition to jiu-jitsu and doing no-gi, they will just work their background. Like for me, I look for my judo in no-gi, or a sambist, I'm sure he will do the same. A freestyle wrestler, I'm sure they will do the same. But of course, what's interesting about no-gi, at least today with ADCC and IBJJF, all of it, of course, there's a lot of credit to catch. In the West, it's a melting pot between judo and catch. But how we look at no-gi, whether it's the only thing you do or you use it for MMA or self-defense, we cannot deny that we look at it through judo eyes. We see the guard, we see passing of guard, and also we see a lot of work off the back, and much less like neck cranks and bulldog chokes like catch wrestling. Again, I'm not an expert on catch, and I know what it can do, and a lot of the people that challenge judokas throughout the decades, but also we cannot but see that it is the fundamentals of judo that are very much visible in today's no-gi that has seriously awed the world, whether it's ADCC again, which is the biggest, and of course now you have CJI, etc. But it's interesting to see that there is just so many different causes or elements that has contributed to this phenomenon that we have today, whether it is Valet tudo, people from luta livre fighting in Valet tudo, or catch as catch can in Europe, and of course the Japanese, which is somewhat backward because they strengthened their gi and then made it into something very thick that now they can just rely on it without being, not durable. So which made judo very gi oriented and probably will forever be. But everything else, how they contacted with other martial arts, they had to adapt their judo without the gi. So it's a very interesting phenomenon. I'm sure there's still a lot to discuss, but this is just from basic observation, from cultural and geographical development, just like newaza, just like throws in other indigenous wrestling, etc. If you have anything to add, please let me know down below. Don't forget to check out Xmartial and my book down below. This was Shadi, and thank you for listening.